Us for tonight's town hall. We'll be focused tonight on schools, our kids, and learning in the COVID-19 era. As a mom, I know I have a lot of questions about distance learning, what I can do to help my kids, and what can we expect for the next school year. Really happy to be joined by three incredible panelists today who are going to help to answer some of my questions and many of your questions as well. We are joined by our State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Tony Thurmond. Thank you, Superintendent, for joining us.
Thank you, Assembly.
And we are also joined by Susan Stokes, who is a second grade teacher at Newport Coast Elementary and the Teacher of the Year at the Newport Mesa School District. Thank you so much, Ms. Stokes, for being here. We're also joined by Archana Jain, an engineering teacher at Irvine High School, the 2018 IUSD Teacher of the Year, and the 2019 Orange County Teacher of the Year. Thank you both for being here and for all that you do for our kids in our community.
Thanks for having us. Hello.
So let's start with distance learning. I was just talking to my kids before I jumped on the call, and I think we've counted that it's week number 9 of learning from home. So Superintendent, we'll start with you. What are schools supposed to be offering to our kids and our parents? What's going well, and where are there still challenges?
Thank you, Assembly Member. And a thank you to all of our educators for all these weeks of distance learning. This was not easy, and it has bumps at times, but the system moved as a whole, serving 6.2 million students. Our system moved into distance learning almost overnight. And for many, that meant that there was no training, there was no time to even get a packet together, there was no time to ensure who had access to a laptop and who had internet at home. And so at times this has been very difficult. But what has remained constant has been great educators ensuring that our students are getting access to great education through remote and distance learning. And so I'm grateful to our educators and to the resilience of our educators and our parents and our students. We know this has been hard on parents and families because they tell me, they get me on social media, they tell me in the grocery store, they tell me any way that they can get my attention that this has been hard. And this has been sort of the unimaginable, but I'm grateful to parents who've been standing in the gaps and partnering with educators to make sure that students are getting access to learning. And so we will continue to finish out this school year. And we know that we have to then take a break, give our educators a chance to have a break for addressing fatigue. They've been working so hard. Start planning, using the summer to start planning for what the next school year will look like and how we will reopen during the fall. I'm happy to say more about that, but I just wanted to say that we're grateful to educators and parents and students for all that they're doing and have been doing to make the distance learning work.
And so Ms. Jain and Ms. Stokes, what are some of the things, some of the strategies that you see working well in your own classrooms and in the classrooms of some of your colleagues?
I think our school, the teachers all work really closely together. The district, the Newport Mesa Unified School District, TOSAs at the district office have come up with a district template that we're able to be consistent and assign the same chapter in language arts and assign the same chapters in math, and also have a comprehensive PE program, and our science teachers are popping on. So that has really helped us be organized and keep the kids stable and organized.
And I think similarly, we've got a lot of us working together. We're meeting every week to just touch base with teachers to see who's where, what type of supports they need. We've all modified curriculum big time just to make sure that trying not to overwhelm students with things that, because they don't realize that classwork and homework might have been different, or other, instructional strategies are different when you're at home versus at school. So I think we've all been amazing when you see how much everyone has just gone and modified curriculum, reached out to resources or professional learning communities across the state, across the county, across the district, wherever we can to find better resources. So I think that's been a big plus for us as well.
I know we have got teachers all across the state and definitely right here in my community that really are going above and beyond to ensure that our kids have what they need during this time. But I've got a couple questions online for you, Superintendent. So I'm finding there isn't enough teacher to student virtual interaction. and in some cases there is no direct instruction happening for my kids. What sorts of strategies are being implemented to address this problem?
Thank you, Assembly Member, and thanks for the question. I hear this quite a bit, and it varies. It's interesting. The variation sometimes is from classroom to classroom, even within the same school district. Sometimes it has a lot to do with the comfort level of who's leading and the needs of the classroom. I hear some teachers who tell me they can't wait to see their students on a Zoom or on a web call because they miss seeing their students. And some teachers tell me that their students are already waiting before the Zoom call is supposed to start because they miss their teachers. Like you would expect in any sector, there are different levels of comfort in using, online tools to deliver education. And so in some cases, some have decided not to hold regular Zoom classes, but to provide access to information that's on a website where students log in, get the assignment, get it completed by a certain amount of time. And so, I think we all would admit that there's a benefit to that interaction and that engagement, and so that students have time to have questions. This is new for all of us. This happened overnight. This literally happened overnight. And so I think it's raising new questions for all of us about training. Some districts actually waited 2 or 3 weeks before they provided any distance learning to start training teachers, to provide professional development, to make sure that students have devices. Others launched right away. And so there's probably been some bumps along the way. And a lot of us are getting familiar and comfortable with how all this works. I have often asked my teenage daughters to help me with tech support for the many Zoom calls that I'm doing. And so we're learning from our students. I do think that in spite of any differences, it does feel uneven sometimes in the amount of work that students receive. But I want to assure parents that our educators really are on top of this and really have a great way of helping our students. And yes, there can be some learning gaps. There's no question of that. We had an achievement gap before all of this started. And one of my task forces is focused on how do we close the learning gaps that many of our students will experience. But what I'm confident in is that we have great teachers who, when school starts again in the fall, they will assess where students are entering. And teachers have been expert at doing these assessments and identifying the right way to support a student, and if necessary, how to help a student get on grade level as needed. I think that this is pushing us to have really big conversations about how learning happens. Is it about the seat time, or is it about the mastery of content? Is it about students being able to show that they can apply the work? Now, I know that sounds probably a little crazy when we've been used to it being in a certain way. And all I'm saying is that I would encourage parents and students to just do the best that you can. I would encourage teachers and educators to do the best that you can. And let us keep having these conversations about how we create uniformity and consistency across districts. And let's just make sure that our students are safe and learning. And I believe that we're going to be heading in the right direction as we go forward.
And so to our teachers, just very briefly, I would love to understand kind of how you structure your day and week with your students, and kind of your perspective on how important that instruction time, even if it's virtual, is in this moment.
I think the kids are craving some level of connectivity, but there's also a balance between how much, because they do feel that screen time fatigue at some point that, and I felt it too, if I've been on one after another, and then a school one, and then a personal one, it gets exhausting. So, I tend to run one a week with each class and as a whole, so that we can go over instructions. Mine's a project-based class, and I've got projects that way it helps us to have a longer range project where I've modified them so the kids do things from what you've got at home now, not what you had at school. And then I'll do individual. I just had an individual Zoom parent-student conference today. I've had other ones with students who might not be engaging and just trying to find out what's going on and how can I help you. And so I'll do individual appointments if they would like to get, a little bit more feedback, or if they're still a little confused on what's happening. When I really have something in depth, I'll video the Zoom, I'll record it, and then I'll post that in our Canvas page, which is where all my instruction is. So any student who needs to revisit or couldn't attend the session can go check on the video and see what I've put in there for them.
Since I'm an elementary school teacher and I'm in a self-contained classroom, I meet with my kids every day for 2 hours. First, I present the information, I send out a weekly schedule and the focus wall for language arts. I make assignments, and then we'll do the core work. And then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I do reading groups with groups of 6 or 7 kids for 15 minutes. So I'm meeting with them in small groups. And I kind of put them all in groups with their friends rather than by ability. That way they have a chance to interact with each other. And that has been just a really nice thing. And on Friday, we meet with our 5th grade buddies, or I have special guests come in, like I've got the guitar musician coming tomorrow, and we just plan some field trips so the kids feel, you know, like it's not just all screen time, because there is a certain amount of Zoom fatigue with what the way we're delivering the instruction right now.
Because I know some parents have asked, should we have some kind of minimum threshold for instruction in terms of amount of time that teachers are live on a screen with their kids? Superintendent, is that something you've thought about? Is that a viable solution?
I get asked the question all the time, and I understand the nature of the question, and I'll be honest, as a parent, when I see different level of instruction between my own 2 children, there are times when I've asked the question, is this really working? And then I have to stop and back myself up and remember, it's not about the seat time. It's not about the number of minutes. It's not about the number of screen time. Our 2 teachers of the year have just said that there's a balance between face time that a student might get and a balance between working on independent projects. Now, that's a little different for much younger students who might need more support. And so, the reality is that in our state, the way schools make decisions, the state board of education might put out some guidelines about what's considered standards, but ultimately local school districts make decisions about the curriculum that they use and the textbooks that they use. And so I'm not sure that someone legislating from the state capitol a decision about how many minutes every student should get, how much screen time every student should get. I worry that actually might underestimate the importance of individual needs of our students. And again, I just want to commend our teachers and their ability, even with a large class size, their ability to really gauge the different needs of their students and to work with them. I always say this: computers are so important, and so many of our kids don't have them, and we're working to close that digital divide. But a computer cannot replace a great teacher. It is a tool to connect our kids to great teachers. And at the end of the day, it's our educators who make assessments about where students enter and where they need to support and how to balance the whole cohort, the whole classroom. And so I know this is really different. It's different from everything that we've ever known. I think that we're going to have to, because of the pandemic now, we're forced to start having conversations about how we measure learning. And that's going to look different from everything that we've known. And school districts are literally telling us that there are students who have not checked in at all. They cannot communicate with them because their families are either moving, struggling to address basic needs. They don't have the proper equipment and tools. And so we have to be mindful about how we take attendance. We have to be mindful about how we assign educational goals. And our school districts have been so flexible and so nimble and moving so quickly to make sure that we don't just do things that look like one-size-fits-all policies that ultimately hurt our students. Now, there are places where we can, improve, and we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to provide guidance to support our school districts. But I think we're moving in a different direction, where we're focusing more on how students learn, not how many minutes they have had, but how they learn, how we measure that learning, and how we support their ability to show us that they've actually can apply what they've learned. These are the things that we've been saying are important: critical thinking, application of what they've learned. The pandemic is forcing us now to take another step in how we put that in action.
That's interesting. So you talked about kind of viewing this through the lens of kind of what opportunities are being created. And actually one of our questions was kind of along a similar vein, which is how can these technology classroom changes, distance learning, also be used to prepare students for the jobs of the future? Ms. Jain or Ms. Stokes, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of flexibility is a big thing, just
Mhm.
dealing with things are not working, and communication skills have been amazing. How does a student learn to communicate? You know, they can send me like a quick little question on an email and I don't get what they're asking, and we go back and forth, and they start to learn how to ask effective questions. They learn. We're going to be doing, I mean, we're doing this now. We've done it in other industries, that you do have Zoom meetings, you do have, or WebEx meetings. How do you conduct yourself in one of those meetings with professionals across the world? And just a lot of the critical thinking of problem solving with all of these things that are happening. How do I do what I need to do if it isn't working correctly? How do I communicate
Mhm.
my issue? And I think they're going to learn so much more just by, you know, working through these issues, and there's skills that you can't measure and grade, but they'll go away with some great skills.
Mhm.
You know, elementary school students, things are going to look so different when they get into the job force. Who knows what the technology is going to be? These kids, they know so much. They're so resilient and they're able to adapt. I mean, they teach me things all the time. The first day I did Zoom, a second grader took over my screen. I had to learn really quick that, you know, how I needed to be better than them at the technology.
But
That
they
is,
also
it's
showed you that they applied their learning and that they could
right.
actually show you, right?
Yes. I'm like, how do you do that?
Right. It is such a challenging time. And it is important to take a step back and realize that the challenge itself is teaching our kids resilience, and it is teaching them problem solving, and it is, you know, it is building critical skills in our kids right now, though it feels day in, day out, it can feel so hard for all of us. One other question kind of related to the distance learning theme: how will distance learning affect college applications and admissions? Superintendent, how are we handling that?
You know, and the good news is that our colleges and universities in California have all come together, and they have said that you know, they have aligned with what's happening in K-12 this year, and they have said that no student is going to be disadvantaged because of the impacts of COVID-19. And so the CSUs, the UCs, all the private colleges in California, they've all said that they will accept whatever grading system our school districts have. That can be pass fail. Some school districts said that, hey, we'll go with whatever the highest grades you had at the time that the pandemic started, but you can't go any lower than that. All of our institutions of higher education have said that they will work with our students as it relates to admitting them. And they've been really clear that for admissions, they are suspending the use of the SAT for admissions for the oncoming year and maybe for the next year. By the way, today, the University of California regents took a vote to suspend the SAT and the ACT as a policy matter. But as it relates as a practice, all of our institutions of higher education in California are taking the approach that students can take their AP exams from home. My daughter took her AP exam from home yesterday, and you know, it was a much less stressful environment than we anticipated. And so what I'm saying is our universities have accepted that distance learning is sort of the order of the day. As a matter of fact, as you all know, our universities have all moved to systems of distance learning. They did it the moment that the pandemic hit, and many of them have announced that they're going to stay with distance learning through the end of the fall semester. And so I think that many see this as an opportunity for us to strengthen the way we do online learning. I don't think it replaces in-class instruction. I just think it's a way for us to strengthen how online learning can be a tool to support what great classroom teachers do.
And before we get to, because I know I and all the parents at home want to get into kind of, you know, what is the classroom of the future, the not too distant future, going to look like? What do we expect next year? And before we do, I just want to get to some questions from parents who, I think that there's a lot of anxiety amongst parents about, you know, wanting to do everything they can to support their kids in this moment. So, you know, I don't have time in my day to do my work for my job and then also teach or even just get my son to do the assignments. What do you suggest? Ms. Jain, let me start with you.
It is hard. I will say, I mean, both of my children are grown now and not, you know, I'm not working with them on this, but it is hard. And I'm a teacher now, I've been a parent, and trust me, when the teacher says something, boy, it makes all the difference in the world. I could say the same thing and no one hears me, but when the teacher says it. So setting up a routine is a big deal. Giving them their space to work is a big deal. Give them even that personal space. Don't hover, don't try to check on everything, but do regular checks with the student on how things are going. Check their grade book online and see if there's missing assignments. Connect with the teachers, and then if possible, have the student have the one-on-one, either a Zoom or a Canvas conference or through Google Meets, whatever works, having that individual conference, because I know I've spoken to a couple kids individually and it's made a much different approach to what they were doing, or I'll hear something that makes me understand why they're struggling with something. So I know it is hard, and I can't even imagine how it would be to work on both ends. And we have teachers who are doing the same thing. They're trying to manage their teaching schedule with their children's schedule, but a routine is a big deal, and checking in, not on every single day, but at least, on a regular basis. How are things going? How can we help you out? Is there anything you need? And then definitely connect them with the teacher if there's a struggle that seems to be going on.
Okay, so structure, routine, and ensuring that you're reaching out to maintain that connection and troubleshoot. And so, Ms. Stokes, question for you: what guidance and tools are available to support my child's learning? Where can I access them?
Well, Newport Mesa has just a fantastic toolkit online. I mean, it's every grade level, and the teachers on special assignment up at the district office have been preparing all kinds of lessons for us that we can download and put in our Google Classroom. So that's where they could go to the Newport Mesa Unified School District website. There's also a lot of, outside resources that, Khan Academy and things like that people are utilizing. So I have some of my kids are, will do Zoom, and then they're doing some other lessons after we Zoom. So they're continuing to move forward.
And so what are some of your favorites? So you mentioned Khan Academy. Are there any others that you would recommend to parents listening?
I like Khan Academy. I love just having, since I'm an elementary teacher, I want them to get away from sometimes doing what we're doing in class. So just going on some of these virtual field trips, you can go to the Smithsonian, you can go to the White House. And I think it's really enriching for the kids to do that. They also need to learn how to type. So we have typing club that they can utilize, because all they're doing their work all online right now. So that's what
NASA has some great resources, very short challenges that you can do with the students and things that you can log into, and loads and loads. I mean, you can just go into their educator site and there's just simple challenges, fun ideas to do as a family. I actually feel at this point, it's almost like I'm just reminding my students to stay the course, because just like for me, it's information overload. I mean, I'm getting messages left and right. Here's a cooking class, here's an exercise class, and I just can't manage it all. So, there's places that they can go. There's a lot of wonderful YouTube videos that I've sent my students towards for at least engineering purposes. So many other places that they can work.
Well, and Ms. Stokes, as you just mentioned, now everything's online, everything's digital. We've all talked about how sometimes it's important to take our kids off the screens. So what can we do with our whole classroom being online? Like, what can we do to get our kids off their screens and inspire, more movement, more, artistic expression, more of those sorts of experiences?
I know this is online, but Go Noodle is a really fun program where the kids can get on, and it's funny to watch them in gallery view because they're all doing the exercises, but we're living such a beautiful place for them to get out and go hiking up a Crystal Cove, or to go out on a walk, or learn how to cook and do something with their family. And I just think it's so important for us to have time to work at school and work at home, but you need a break and you need to spend time with your family. So just having a schedule, maybe knock off at a certain time. So, when I hear parents say we were on the computer till 9 o'clock last night, that's not good for the kids. They need to have it's hard for me even working at home because I don't feel like I have that break between school and home. And I was constantly working the first couple weeks, but it's really important for your own mental health to break away, go sit outside, go on a walk. As simple as that.
Definitely. And then
Yes.
I will tell you, I have polled my teenagers in my classes, and these are teenagers who usually are afraid of what others are going to think. But I've done polls, and one of my questions was, what is one real positive thing from this time? And what is a challenge that you're having? And I would say at least 90% of the kids came back with, I get to spend time with my family, which
That's great.
when you're talking about high school kids, sometimes that's not, you know, I got to spend more time with my sibling. We've been cooking things. My mom's never made this from scratch. My dad's never made bread. And now we're making dumplings at home and we're eating together. And they've all said that that was one of the best things that has come out of this. And to remind them of that. And I think it's your own attitude too. It's just reminding the kids that there's good in here, as opposed to it's an awful thing that's happening to us, because it's happening to everybody. So, you know,
yes. And just as you said, it's staying focused on the positive, and also kind of cherishing those little precious moments. And as our world has kind of, you know, gotten smaller and gotten narrower, we have more time to do things that we maybe didn't do, whether you're a parent or a child. And that's, I think, such an important perspective. Okay, so we said we've been distance learning for 9 weeks. We're about to wrap up the school year. There are so many questions about what is coming next. What can we expect in the fall? I think we all know that opening our schools is so critical to California's ability to be able to reopen our economy. And Superintendent, we also know that there are so many challenges with being able to reopen our schools safely. So tell us, what is the plan for the summer and fall?
You know, so many school districts, they will end their school year soon. Some are ending this month, some will end in June. And in many ways, it will be the same. There'll be a little break, there'll be a summer break. There has to be a summer break to address fatigue. And many school districts will use the summer to plan for the fall. And some school districts will create some opportunity for some kind of enrichment for students who may need some additional support to address learning loss. I've heard from some districts that are planning to have a few days early before the school year starts in August or in September, just to start a little bit early for some students who may need some additional support. One thing I want everyone to understand is that California is not going to have a common opening that says that every single school district is going to open at the same time. At the end of the day, we have 1,000 school districts, and they all make their own decisions about when they're going to open. What we're doing at the California Department of Education is we are guiding those districts. We're working with them. We're charting their openings. We're helping them to come up with the plans about what school's going to need to look like. I've got a task force that's focused on one thing only, and that is, how do we open in the fall? And how do we answer the questions that come with opening? Let's accept that most have never seen this done before. It is only now that in some other countries, we're beginning to see students come to school with a face mask on and with staff having a face mask on, that we have to have social distancing guidelines at school, maintaining 6 feet in school. Many expect that school districts may make the decision to have sort of a 2 different times that students report in school, that there may be a morning session and that there may be an afternoon session, in order to accommodate the need for smaller class sizes. Many districts have said that they intend to do this. Almost every district that I've heard from has said that there will probably be some blended form of in-class instruction, as well as some distance learning, to accommodate the requests and needs of families who've asked for it. And so we're working with our districts to understand how to sanitize our campuses, how to address health and safety. We brought in experts from Cal OSHA and from the Department of Public Health to provide the technical assistance on what needs to happen on school buses and on campuses. But generally, we know that when schools open, we're going to have to see smaller class sizes. We're going to have to see social distancing in hallways and common areas and classrooms. And we're going to have to do the same things that we're doing now, wearing a mask, to ensure that we prevent further spread of the coronavirus.
And so you mentioned a couple of things there. So you said that, and I know you and the governor have said this before, that the State Department of Ed is going to be providing guidance, and then our individual school districts are going to be making those decisions about, you know, how to roll out that guidance in their communities. We've got a question from the president of the Newport Mesa Federation of Teachers about the criteria recommended by CDE and the governor to reopen our schools. How do they relate to local school districts' decision-making process? So it's my understanding is that CDE is planning to release those guidelines imminently. Can you give us any kind of a preview or any sense of what that will entail for our school districts and our teachers?
Thank you. And to the president from the Teachers Association, I would say that most school districts are already making plans for what the school year needs to look like. And that's why today we hosted a Zoom call, imagine this, for 1,000 school districts, because we wanted to compare notes. We don't want our guidance to fall short of what our local districts need. And so today we did a sharing of notes between what districts are planning and the guidance that we are working on. Now, some of it is very, very technical, as much to the degree of what ingredients need to be used to, you know, wash down a desk or surfaces at the school. We want to make sure that safety and health and science are paramount and our foremost approach to how to do this. We're not going to ask anybody to open a school if we can't do it safely. And so our guidance will be out imminently, but we're already providing previews every single week so that districts know what we're learning. Our guidance is actually being shaped by practitioners. We've invited classroom teachers, classified staff, principals, superintendents, representatives of teacher unions and classified unions and educational administrator associations to all come together to address the issues of health and safety, how we will arrange personnel and our students, and then the fiscal implications. We know that our schools cannot do this with cuts. There are going to be new expenses to doing this. And I'm grateful to the Assembly member and to our legislature for all that you're doing to ensure that we get the resources that our schools need. One, you started this on March 13th with the governor's executive order by giving us SB 117 to help pay for personal protective equipment, masks and hand sanitizer, and the kinds of things that our schools need. And so right now, the legislature is vetting the governor's mid-year revision in his budget to really fine tune the conversations about how school's gonna open. What we need more than anything is we need action from the federal government. We need the federal government to come forward and to provide the kind of support that's being requested that will ensure that there will be no cuts to our schools. Short of that happening, we know that a lot of the folks in the legislature are already talking about revenue measures that will give our schools the resources that they need to have the resources without making any cuts. And we're in it for the long haul. We'll keep working with all of our school districts on how their plans unfold so that we can have a safe opening in the fall.
Right. I think we all know that to make this work, we're going to need smaller class sizes for social distancing. We're going to need extra staff for daily cleaning. We're going to need PPE. The list kind of goes on and on. And I think we all recognize that that's not realistic in a world with, you know, a smaller budget. So certainly a lot to grapple with at the state level, and a lot for our local school districts and local teachers to grapple with as well. So you mentioned, and I know you've mentioned this before, kind of this possibility of staggered schedules. So what is that in practical terms for me as a parent and for working parents all over the state? Is that, you know, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 5 mornings a week? How are you thinking about that? And then I'd love our teachers to weigh in terms of how you're thinking about that and how that might work.
Sure. I'll share what some districts have said, and I don't want to get anybody alarmed if they think that this is the way it's going to be, because ultimately your local district will be making these decisions. But many districts are thinking about, some districts are thinking about having instruction a few days a week and then having a morning shift and then having an afternoon shift for students. Okay. Other districts are approaching it in a different way. In order to keep the numbers small, they're going to ask a group of students to report on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then another group might report on Tuesdays and Thursdays, And then there might be Friday, which might be a distance learning day. Many districts have said that they may want to keep at least one day of distance learning to kind of keep that practice effective for our students. And so, it's going to look different, but, we know that it's likely to be some variation of a morning and afternoon shift on a given day, or students being asked to report, 2 days and then a distance learning day, and then having, alternating sessions in those ways. The same for students who travel by bus. That's a place where we might see staggered start times in a very significant way, because if you're on a bus, you have to maintain 6 feet of distance. And so that will mean that school districts that operate transportation may have to create staggered reporting times for our students about when they actually report, and then school will resume. And so we believe that in the next week or two, school districts will be announcing more of their intentions around how their schedules are going to look. They're working on it as we speak. But this is just a preview of the things that we've heard from districts about how the schedule might look.
Okay. And what are your thoughts, Ms. Jain and Ms. Stokes, in terms of staggered schedules?
I think about the group A would come Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, we could be off to make sure everything's sanitized. And then group B come Thursday, Friday. That way we'd have time to make sure the room was clean. That I originally thought we could do a Monday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday, Thursday, but that would mean a lot more cleaning. So that was just one of the things that our teachers have talked about.
Got it.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on grade level also. That makes a difference. Our high schools here are on block schedule. So depending on how each of the schools manages their blocks, I normally see my students every other day as is. And so I think it's going to be, how do we juggle the schedule so that I don't really see them just once a week, as opposed to seeing them at least twice a week. So that might mean changing the actual block schedules. High school campuses, they get big, and there isn't a whole lot of distance when you're out there and you're going in the wrong way when the bell rang and you're trying to get out of the building. It's difficult. So I know there's going to have to be a lot of that conversation in terms of how do you reduce the number of students, even if you take a 1,900, 1,800, 2,400 student school and cut it down in half. That's still a large number of students on a campus. So I know that's between the cleaning and social distancing, that's going to be a big challenge that needs to be addressed.
Well, and I've gotten a couple questions both tonight and then also from some friends about whether or not we're thinking about kind of the possibility of like a choose your own adventure for the next fall. So where we could actually get parental input and choice into, so the parents that want their kids to go to school in person, their kids would be in person. There could potentially be another group who their kids are learning online. Could we allow parents to choose between in-person and study at home? This would reduce class size for those who want to go and honor those who are not comfortable sending their kids right now. Is that something you're exploring? Is that something we think has any feasibility?
Like most things, parents are always sort of ahead of us and always innovating. And I say that to say that parents have already been expressing to various school districts their desire to have a distance learning option. And so just about every school district that I've heard from has said that they intend to be offering a distance learning option.
Okay, interesting. And for you as teachers, does that feel possible for you to be doing, some kids in person in a class and some in a virtual environment?
It's challenging, I will say that, just because of the nature of the way what I have in the classroom and what I can provide for my students versus what they might have at home. But I mean, we've adapted greatly. So I would hope that we'd have enough lead time to really go through and understand what is needed and expected so that we can make sure that both groups of students have the same level of learning and they do get the same level of instruction, because for me, that would be paramount. Is not just to have you don't want the student who can't come in to fall behind or
right.
really
Right.
I know that
daunting task to think of right now, but I know once we get your heads around some of this and how we can do it. We'll figure that out step by
Well,
step.
I know my sister teaches at a private high school, and they are going to do 360 cameras. So the kids who did want to stay home could access the same curriculum as the kids that came to school. And we had a lot of kids at our school that had some health issues that really should not be exposed to other kids. So I'm sure there's quite a few parents that are interested in keeping their children home until there's some kind of vaccine.
I'm learning a lot from the teachers. That's why they're both Teachers of the Year winners. I wanted to mention, Assembly Member, that next week we're going to be hosting a focus group with teachers to get suggestions like the ones that they're providing right now, like the 360 cameras, and how to rotate at the high school level. Because some people have said, well, maybe students in high school will only see the one teacher and that they won't shift from class to class to class. People are putting out all kinds of scenarios. We want to test them against the experience of teachers like you. And so I'm inviting you both, if you'd be willing and interested, to join our focus group and to continue this conversation beyond today, that in ways that we get the benefits of your experience in testing the practical applications of the things that are being suggested.
Love to.
Thank you.
And I now have a couple of questions on special education. So Superintendent, I'm going to start with you on these. So what are the strategies, resources, and plans to serve our special ed students right now?
You know, we have been encouraging and training and supporting school districts on how to provide special education by remote. Even the federal government, the Department of Education, has said that it is okay to deliver special education in a remote way. Now, I just have to say this, and I want parents to understand that if a school district tells you that they're not going to provide services for students who have disabilities, who have special education needs, they must not do that. That is not the guidance that they are being provided. The guidance that they're being provided is that it is okay to deliver it through special education. I am right now sitting at one of our schools that serves deaf students in the state of California. And I can tell you that our staff has found ways to conduct hundreds of IEPs through web calls, and found ways to keep them secure and to respect the needs of families. And so I think it's the wrong approach for any school district to say we're not going to provide any special education. It's not following what the federal government has given us flexibility to do. And it's not really the way that we should be approaching our students. I am grateful to our special educators who've been on our webinars every week. We do a webinar on delivering special education every single week. We do a webinar on serving students who are English learners every single week. And the feedback that we have gotten is that we are able to create secure connections to support students, that they can have their IEPs done, that they can work closely with their educators and their one-on-one aides and their speech pathologists, that there are ways for them to continue to get those supports. There are certainly challenges in how that gets implemented, and we have to find ways to work around those challenges. But to any parent right now who's been told that you're not going to get any services in special education, we want you to know that it is your right to have that for your child. And if you think that we can be helpful, we would like you to contact us. You should contact your county office of education, your school district, but you can always contact the California Department of Education if you feel that you're not getting the support that you need as it relates to serving students with disabilities.
Well, and it sounds like in this arena as well, there are some teachers and some districts that have been really innovative and really thoughtful and creative about the way that they're delivering services. It does feel like it's kind of an opportunity to highlight those best practices, because I think, you know, all our school districts, our parents, our teachers are dealing with so much right now. I think it's easy to be overwhelmed. I think that, you know, anything we can do to push out best practices and some of these insights, I think is so powerful. So thank you for sharing that, and also for sharing the fact that you are fighting for our special ed students and fighting for their parents as well. And are there things that, you know, so how can I've got a parent with special needs, what can I do right now to help my kids? Are there specific resources that are available for parents who have children who have been in special ed or who may have special educational needs? Anything that you would highlight, Superintendent, or either of our teachers are aware of to highlight for parents?
We do have a number of resources on the California Department of Education webpage, and I would encourage family members to visit that. I would also encourage to always start at your local district, because your local district will have information on the webpage about specific programs and offerings that are being made available. But anytime someone wants to visit the California Department of Education website, please do so. Send us an email at covid19@cde.ca.gov, and we'll do our best to connect. I would agree with the many resources that our Teachers of the Year awardees have talked about. Khan Academy. At the end of the day, I want to remind folks that our students are always learning. There's never a time when our students aren't learning. And I know that this shift has been very, very difficult on everyone, on our students, on our families, on our educational systems. But our students are always learning. And I believe it was Ms. Stokes who talked about the importance of getting our kids out and taking a walk. And I think it was Ms. Jain who said that sometimes our parents have to go a little easier on themselves and give themselves a break. And we support that. We are dealing with the pandemic, a worldwide incident that has halted things as we know it. And it is okay for parents to do their best. It is absolutely okay. And when you take that walk with your students, enjoy that walk. And I have heard this as well. I believe it was Ms. Stokes who said it. Parents who've talked about having a regular schedule now where they're able to spend more time with their family, that they're able to sit down to have dinner together, that they're having movie night together. I don't know that my kids like it, but I call our walks PE, and that because what I'm learning as a parent is that it is important to give kids structure, that they need physical exercise, that they need structure every single day. They need to get rest and take breaks from all of the Zooms and get good rest. And they need to eat well. They need to eat well and be well. And so, it's important for us to do some of these things are basic things, but they will pay dividends in the long run on the well-being for our students. And any resource that we can provide, we have mental health resources on our website. We did a support circle today for students that was led by students, where we shared resources. We want to make sure that our students are cared for first and foremost, because this is scary to them. They don't understand this. They miss their friends. They miss being in school. And so it is okay for us to make our focus supporting the well-being of our kids, because they're always learning. There will never be a time that they're not learning, even if it doesn't seem that they're getting a lot of content. Just know that they're learning. What they need more than anything is for us to listen to them, for us to tell them that we love them and we support them, and to help them as we help ourselves through this pandemic.
Right, as you said, the most important thing right now, I think to all of us as parents, is our kids' well-being. And this is an incredibly stressful time for parents, for students, for teachers, for all of us living through this pandemic. Ms. Jain and Ms. Stokes, what are some resources that you would point our parents to for support right now in just maintaining sort of mental health and balance and overall wellness?
I have sent your staff a whole list. It's a very long list I just got from our mental health group at our school. It was a very thorough list of a variety of places that you could go depending on what they need. And it covers everything from needing mental wellness, of course, and any sort of support in terms of professionals, or even calming exercises, regular exercises, meditation, yoga, all the different areas, whether it's just proper nutritional needs. So there's quite a large range of resources that they've sent me, because I know I don't have access to all of those unless I start asking the right people. And so I got a great list, but I've sent that out. So if you could put that in, I think that would be very helpful. And as always, I think everyone has to gauge what's going on at home. There are a variety of immediate suicide hotlines, 911, if things are really, and there's a lot going on that it's hard for us to not know what's happening in the homes, and that is difficult. But those are your first resources if things are really bad. And then of course there's all the other places that they can access if they need to.
So for us in Newport Mesa, we have our student services department has excellent counseling. And I recently was enrolled in the mindfulness practice program at the Orange County Department of Ed, and they have a lot of excellent resources on their website about mindfulness and calming and keeping kids calm. And one other thing is that parents need to remain positive, especially with little kids. Kids hear everything you're saying. You know, kids get scared and they know what's going on. So just trying to keep adult conversations between adults and realizing that your kids are hearing what you're saying. And we want to maintain a positive outlook for what's going on with the kids in terms of whether they're going back to school or the distance learning or everything we're doing. So I just think that's something really important to think about.
That is so important. So important. I think our kids pick up so many cues from us as parents, right? And it's, you know, glass is half full or the glass is half empty. And a lot of that is a choice, even in the midst of a crisis like this. So that's so powerful. And before we wrap up, this is Teacher Appreciation Month. So to our teachers on the call today, so first of all, we appreciate you and we know your students do too. What are some things that parents can do to support their teachers throughout this period?
For me, the most important thing that the parents can do, number one, the kids need to be on a schedule. They need to be dressed when they come to school. Please don't come in your pajamas. I mean, this is school. Have all your supplies with you, have paper and pencils and colored pencils. And, you know, I'll put a list out of what books they need for the day, but have your supplies there so you're organized and you're ready to learn. And again, keeping the positive attitude and having the parents just be there to support their kids is really important for me as a teacher.
And I think, you know, along with the schedule and keeping up is even just keeping communication with the teachers. You know, I asked for that all year as is. If there's something going on at home that I don't know about, and especially when, you know, I can see a child in front of me and I can see something's off and talk to them, but let me know if something's going on. You don't have to get into details, but, you know, we've got some serious things going on, which is why my kid's not submitting assignments or he or she hasn't been getting on any of your Zoom conferences. At least it helps me know how to support. And I've gotten great, you know, messages from students sometimes, just quick and simple. Hey, I'm really sorry I wasn't there, or I know I've dropped off the last week and I'm just having issues. And then I can guide them with where do you need to go with this and who do you need some help from. And it's important. You don't have to get into details, and we keep it confidential, of course. So just help us know if there's something happening that's students learning.
Yes, so communication, that's so important. And Ms. Stokes, you said no pajamas. We've been having like the ongoing pajama debate in my house. So I'm gonna have to tell my 11 and 13-year-old, put on some shorts, no pajamas.
Some clothes.
At least if they're wearing pajamas, they should have an appropriate top on. If they're zooming from waist up, I think all of America right now, we hear people talk about zooming in their pajamas, but they're wearing a shirt and a tie or whatever.
Right.
Is
Okay.
And so
at least the top has to be good. I will say my yoga pants have been my best friend throughout this time, but at least up top.
That's right. So yeah, so pull it together for what the teacher can see. All right, that is good. So before we go, just I'll turn it over first to you as superintendent, and then come back to our teachers for just any closing remarks or parting thoughts that you'd share with the parents listening at home.
Assembly member, thank you for putting this on. You're a great moderator. I think this conversation has been highly enlightening and engaging. I've been taking notes and learning from all of you and from the teachers that you have on and from your parents that you represent. And they have a great assembly member in you. So thank you for leading during this time. What I've learned is that people really need information right now. And it's hard to understand what we're going through. It's been 100 years since the last major incident, since the pandemic took place in the Spanish flu. And so for most of us, we've not experienced anything like this in our lifetime. And being able to get information from our leaders really does help us to feel connected. It really gives us a way to continue to maintain and to manage. And these are tough times, but we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it together. And we're gonna do more together. And so we will rise to that challenge. California is rising to the challenge of ensuring that in spite of the difficulties of dealing with the pandemic, that our kids get a great education. And I would just say thank you, as you noted, that it is Teacher Appreciation Month, and just ask us all to say thank you to our teachers and our educators. I've been on so many Zooms where educators tell me that they've never heard anyone say thank you. And if we haven't said it before, this is certainly a good time for us to do it. Thank you, Ms. Jain, and thank you, Ms. Stokes, and thank you to the hundreds of thousands of teachers in our state who do great things for our kids every single day. All of you stay safe and be well.
Thank you, Superintendent, and thank you for your leadership in this crisis.
Thank you.
Ms. Stokes.
You know, I am so excited to see my kids every day on Zoom. I got on 15 minutes early and they're all getting on because they just want the connection. So they like to hear I read aloud to them every day. And when I take roll, I just make sure to see each one of them, make sure they look okay and they're doing okay. And it's really important. We're an important part of their life and they're an important part of our lives too. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jain.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And I will say realize that our students are so resilient, and I've seen creativity galore right now that I could never see. I've asked for projects that are done with things out of the house. And if you need to look it up, but if you look up Rube Goldberg machines, they're those really complicated machines you make to do a simple task like turn off your alarm, and it'll go through dominoes and cars. And I had my kids do that last week, and I'm looking at the things they made. They're 2 stories and coming down from the downstairs out to the backyard. And it's incredible. They're all doing this and having fun, and it's bringing their family in with it. And you know, let that be that reminder that enjoy what you can with this. And everyone is experiencing this. I mean, this is my first pandemic too. And everyone's unsure about a lot of stuff that's happening, but go ahead and let some of that creativity come out. We're doing that ourselves at home, and it's kind of a whole different way to engage. And there's skills that you're going to learn here that, you know, if a student can go out and now has time to learn how to cook and eat nutritious meals, or look in the refrigerator and deal with what's in the fridge, because we can't just run over to Ralph's because we're out of one little item, you know, that's really great to see how simple activities like that, but they're life skills, that they're critical life skills that they will need always, and how to manage what you've got in the home. And I think, you know, have fun with it. And the kids are creative. I miss them. I absolutely miss being in the classroom. And I am looking forward to hopefully the time that we can be back in the room again and see each other face to face.
I know we're all looking forward to that so much. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, Superintendent, for joining us. To our teachers, I think that for parents all over the world, this time has revealed just how hard your job is, just how much we value you and how important you are to our kids and our community. So thank you. And the moms and dads and grandpas and grandmas at home, I think, you know, to paraphrase some of what we've heard tonight, this is a hard time. This is an unprecedented crisis and an incredibly hard time, but our kids are strong, they are resilient, and they will get through this. And the superintendent said, we will get through this together. So thank you. Good night. Be well, stay safe, and stay strong.
Thank you.
Thank you.